I'm not going to do this with you anymore.
What? No.
No, it's not helpful to you. You are sick, Annie. I need to call the police.
Holy shit, did they already remake Downsizing?
Jeremy makes a pop culture ref.
Okay, come on, let's go. We're late. Your mother's in the car already.
Maybe next time wake the kids up before the mother gets in the car.
Pointless throwaway sin is pointless and thrown away like morals at a Diddy party.
There aren't nuts in that, are there?
Glad Charlie could inappropriately eat a chocolate bar at her grandma's funeral so that fake Kaiser Soze could bring up her allergy.
Charlie is characterized as abnormal, so eating a chocolate bar at a funeral fits her personality. In fact, if she behaved 100% normally, that would be a sin.
If I've learned anything from my countless hours of CSI viewing, it's that if you make miniatures, you're a serial killer. Pretty sure there's no gray area here.
Jeremy makes a pop culture.
Hereditary. Also, was that a ghost or was Annie just seeing things? If you expect the movie to shed any light on this, you're
So you're expecting the movie to hold your hand and explain every single detail? Why can't the movie trust its audience to interpret this in whatever way we want? Doesn't the unknown make things spookier?
You know that this actually happened. Annie's mom breastfed Charlie. But how? That must have been one epic breast pumping to keep it going through her menopausal years and some 30 years after the last time she gave birth.
According to my research, which was strictly for medical purposes, most women can still breastfeed during menopause and after not breastfeeding for many years. Jeremy doesn't know shit about titties.
Peter fails miserably at the Bechdel test. Sorry. She probably gets this all the time, but we're an often lowbrow film and animation channel, so we have to go there. You know, for the kids.
The Bechdel test is about whether or not a film has at least two female characters who engage in dialogue with each other. This scene has literally nothing to do with it whatsoever. It sounds like Jeremy is throwing out terms to sound smart, but they don't actually mean anything in context. He's like the movie critic version of Jordan Peterson.
You could think about this from a perspective of Piagetian constructivism. So imagine that what you confront fundamentally in the world is what is unknowable. And what is unknowable has an intrinsic meaning. It's both frightening and compelling.
Does that make it more tragic or less tragic than if he has a choice?
One thing you can always count on in horror movies, one of the main characters will be learning about something in literature that will be important to their own lives later. Of course, who can blame Boner for getting a Peter in class and not paying attention?
Jeremy says boner.
The movie is clearly trying to make Charlie the creepy kid in the family, but Peter is making a very good case for himself, staring daggers into Bridget's back. I mean, it's not like Charlie is off eating chocolate while staring at a dead bird. Carry on.
So the movie made a mistake by having creepy characters? You know this is a horror movie, right?
Hey, Dad. It's the cemetery.
Why would the cemetery ask for Steve specifically when revealing the news about Annie's mom's grave being desecrated? Maybe he paid for the funeral, but that means elsewhere in the movie world, Bruce Wayne would get a call about Clark Kent's grave being desecrated instead of Martha.
So he brings up a logical answer to his question and then immediately deflects in order to distract the audience from the fact that this isn't actually a sin. Also, Jeremy makes a pop.
This email gives a reply all option, even though Sylvia Archer sent this only to Annie, and Gmail simply doesn't give this option under those circumstances.
This is actually a good sin, and I doubt we're going to have many more in this fantastic movie. Take a sin back while you still can.
You gonna take your sister?
Mom goes to incredible lengths to make sure Charlie doesn't drink by making him take his way younger sister to a high school party. She suspects, like any good mom would, that drinking will be taking place there, but decides that this will be a safe environment for a 13-year-old daughter to experience. And yeah, I know about the creepy cult that apparently controls their actions. We'll get to that later, but for now, sin.
So you admit that they're being manipulated by the cult, but then still sin this anyway. That's dumb.
Symbol is everywhere, and it's a neat touch explaining the cultist's reach. But come on. To be able to figure out what Charlie and Peter are going to do at every minute? I'd love to see them plan this shit out.
Magic.
Seriously, this movie is 67% foreshadowing.
And the problem is what exactly? Look, it's perfectly fine to dislike foreshadowing, but you're making a video about the mistakes of this movie, so you should really explain yourself when you say something like this.
Just walk over and stand there and they'll give you peace.
I get that Peter wants to go not impress Bridget with more of his not-so-smooth talk, but he couldn't think of anything better to distract Charlie with? Not only does she have the nut allergy to worry about, but this is a fucking high school party. There could be fucking pot in that cake, which is exactly why he doesn't want her to go with him to the bedroom.
Peter is a high school boy who thinks he has a shot at hooking up. If you're expecting him to think rationally in this situation, think again.
Charlie seems old enough to know to ask whether or not there were nuts in this cake, and since this is pretty much the inciting incident for the rest of the movie, it's sin-worthy.
Except it's not, seeing as the cult is manipulating their actions and pushing them to do things like this.
It's hard to breathe.
Also, hard to believe that when Annie made Peter bring his sister to this thing, she didn't make him bring the EpiPen. Nay, 2 EpiPens just in case. And we were already told that they forgot to bring one with them to the funeral at the beginning of the movie. I guess her nut allergy isn't that big of a deal because this family is terrible.
Again, big bad cult manipulation. What don't you get about this?
I guess to get this beheading just right so that Peter would swerve to hit the telephone pole, the payment followers went with the killing of a sacred deer.
Jeremy makes a...
Oh, I get that Peter is in shock, but he doesn't even try to superglue his sister's head back onto her body?
Isn't that what all the kids do in these comedies when they break something priceless at a party? Risky business, anyone?
Jeremy makes...
Jesus, a heater makes the entire room glow a shade of red that you could see from space.
It's a small room with a really bright light. What's the problem?
For the plot, the payment light spills blue paint on Joan's phone number, so that she'll call and go visit her. It's entirely outside her character to seek help like this, but she does it for the movie's sake. Maybe she has no choice. Maybe she's being drawn to these actions by the cult, but it seems like they leave a lot to chance. I mean, I guess they know Annie will call Joan just because she sees the number?
Manipulation. Magic. Cult. Boner. Wait, what?
So was this a medium that taught Joan how to be a medium? Because that doesn't seem good for business. And Annie doesn't ask herself, how does this woman know how to do seances after a medium did it for her just once?
The woman knows how to do seances because she saw one firsthand and she doesn't have the memory of a goldfish. As for the part about staying in business, that doesn't really seem to apply here because this world has actual magic, unlike our world where psychics and all those weirdos are just a bunch of scammers.
He wakes up Steve to do the seance, but why does this have to take place at 1:45 in the morning?
Clearly, she wants to do it now so that she doesn't have to wait any longer. Nobody is saying that she's being rational right now.
It was 20 minutes ago and it worked. I would not be bringing you down here if it didn't. We need to do this as a family. This needs all our energies, okay? Together.
Except you just said you did it by yourself 20 minutes ago, so why do you need them?
So that the connection can be stronger?
Apparently this is the ritual by which the cult gets Payman to leave Charlie and move to Peter. But this opens up way more questions. Like, where did Payman go after Charlie died? If this ritual is to bring Payman into the house, why doesn't it go inside Peter right away? All he needs is the most vulnerable vessel, and we've seen Peter. He's at his lowest right now.
Peter is at his lowest emotionally and psychologically, but he also needs to be physically weakened before Payman can enter his body. The possession takes a lot of work, which is why it takes so long to achieve. And asking where Payman went after Charlie's death is irrelevant, but also seems pretty obvious. He was simply free of his host and therefore unbound by a human body.
When I did this earlier, this manifested on the page. I saw it.
Why didn't we see any of what Annie did before she invited the family to try it? Are we supposed to be as skeptical as they are? This is a kind of frustrating part of the movie to sit through, honestly, because there seems to be no point in why they didn't show us her first try.
You just gave a potential reason. Not showing the audience puts us in the same position as Peter and his dad. They didn't see her attempt earlier, so there's room for doubt.
This movie does plant many clues that foreshadow later events, but none of the writing on the walls is ever explained, like the director just threw them in for sheer creep factor.
Here Jeremy is complaining about the movie trusting its audience yet again. Look, expecting movies to hold your hand through every single detail is extremely stupid. The things written on the walls are bits and pieces of the invocation spell. Liftoch Pandemonium translates to open up chaos, or alternatively open up hell.
So this is taking nothing away from Toni Collette's performance, but I feel like Gabriel Byrne might be the Tom Cruise from Rain Man in this picture, and is giving a much better performance than he's getting credit for, and that is a sin.
Jeremy sins something he likes cliche. Also, Jeremy...
So that turned out not to be Charlie's head, but what made the ball fall from the wall?
The spirit of Payman. That was easy.
You're pulling on my head!
Why does Peter think this when he never saw who was pulling on his head? Sure, there was supposedly a time when Annie nearly set he and Charlie on fire, but that doesn't mean she's the type to pull on someone's head.
Yes, but from his perspective, she seems like the most likely candidate, given her track record. What do you think he should have done? Immediately assume somebody broke into their house just to pull on his head?
I love how Annie's first thought is, I tried to burn the book, and now I'm burning because of it, rather than any other reason her sleeve might be burning right now. Sure, she couldn't get the fire out earlier when she was slapping at it, but did she seriously think she'd put out the fire with that weak attempt?
Annie has seen supernatural stuff by this point, so connecting the dots here makes perfect sense.
So, what the f*** is all this? We got a broken pencil, some sticks, a couple animal heads, some bottles with temples from sunglasses attached, a whole bevy of what the f***. Yeah, it's a diorama of what happens at the end of the movie, but lady, buy some Barbie and Ken dolls.
He admits that it's a diorama of the movie's conclusion, but then sins it anyway.
Peter! Get out!
So, can no one hear her except Peter? And if so, could the movie show us something so we can understand this? This movie makes Twin Peaks look like Blue's Clues.
This has got to be one of the dumbest sins in this video. He asks if Peter is the only one who can hear this, and then shows a clip of Peter looking around at the other kids who clearly can't hear it. The movie is answering your question right now, numbnuts. Just pay attention.
So Annie's mom knew Joan, and they were a part of this cult together. They sure left a lot to chance when they came up with this plan, didn't they? Good thing Annie found this only when it was too late. And also, why did they take so many goddamn pictures of themselves doing all this shit? Especially this, where it's clear Annie's family is a target.
This entire sin is completely irrelevant, seeing as how the cult succeeds in the end. Regardless, taking pictures of the important aspects of the cult could simply be them wanting to document their creepy escapades, and the cult's manipulation of the family made it much more difficult for them to find out what was going on anyway.
Also, it's a photograph of a photograph. Nickelback would be so proud. And Def Leppard. And ooh, the Verve Pipe!
Jeremy makes 3 pop culture references that aren't sins of the movie cliché.
So, Steve clearly didn't decide to investigate the strange smell from a few days ago any further, and everyone was fine with it despite the renowned smell of corpses.
Manipulation. Cult. Payment.
Dug up the grave. All those nights you were pretending to go to the movies.
You mean, Steve really thinks Annie snuck out, dug a little bit of her mother's grave every day, and the cemetery didn't notice until the body had been taken out?
That fake-ass laugh.
To throw it in the fire.
I get that she's grasping at straws, but how is she so certain destroying this book will stop King Payment? And why does she think it won't attack Steve if he throws it in the fire like it did her? He was also with her when she contacted Charlie.
Dude, you're showing a scene with a woman who's very clearly desperate and terrified. She's not thinking straight, and if she was, that would be a legitimate sin.
Steve, please understand, baby. Please throw it in the fire.
Even when you're watching a movie like Hereditary, which tries to elevate itself above typical horror movies, scenes like this where the crazy but not crazy but maybe a little crazy person tries to make the other person believe what they believe without any reason or logic can be downright exhausting to watch. Watching Annie plead with her rightfully disbelieving husband becomes a chore. I mean, I've been watching what's happening and I don't even believe her. And I bet we could do a bonus round on how many pleases have been said in this movie, but we die.
Isn't this kind of the point? Annie knows the truth, but nobody believes her, which makes her feel isolated and allows the cult to get away with it. I'm not surprised that Jeremy doesn't understand storytelling techniques like this, but I am disappointed.
Gabriel Byrne. Also, if she threw it in, why is Steve now on fire? The first time she threw it in, it set her on fire and only started with her sleeve. So why did Steve go all Brad Dourif and spontaneously combust?
Because she was trying to get Steve to throw it in. Remember, we're dealing with magic here. There aren't any hard rules stating that the person who throws the book in the fire gets burned.
Mom?
I don't care how f***ed up that nose is, he should at least be getting a whiff of the barbecue burn right about now.
And what makes you think he's not smelling it? The movie hasn't said one way or the other, so you're making a completely random assumption.
Spider Annie, does whatever a Spider Annie does.
Jeremy tries to sing in a video cliché.
Damn, I haven't seen Gabriel Byrne this charred and toasted since The Usual Suspects.
At this point, I've literally run out of words in my pop culture reference sin. That's how many pop culture references are in this dogshit video. From now until the end of this thing, he's getting 10 sins for every pop culture reference.
How the f*** did she get up here? While I believe that these cultists could set up some spiritual and psychological I do not believe they could make a body transport through the ceiling to set up this scary image.
Magic.
Also, Peter just realized he walked next door to the set of the next Human Centipede sequel. Jim, heard you were in Hereditary. Who'd you play? Oh, me.
Skip.
Charlie.
Why is Joan calling Peter Charlie now? Even if there's an explanation for this, isn't he now King Payman? Why bother with any name other than that one?
The spirit of Payman needs time to develop into the King of Hell on Earth. It doesn't just happen immediately. Therefore, Charlie is still an appropriate name until King Payman can fully develop.
Corrected your first female body and give you now this healthy male host.
Why did it take 13 fucking years to do this, though?
Because it takes a really long time to sufficiently break a family? I mean, King Payman's possession runs on mental and psychological breakage, as well as physical weakness, but it clearly needs to be extreme, so it makes sense that it would require a long build-up. Also, 13 is typically associated with evil and bad luck.
Also, the insane number of things that had to go right for these King Payman followers to get Peter to be the host is impossible. Maybe every step of this plan was manipulated in some way so that they would succeed, but think about what they had to do. They had to somehow make sure Peter brought Charlie to the party, she'd eat a piece of cake with nuts in it, have an allergic reaction, have Peter speed towards a hospital, and run his sister's head into a pole while Charlie stuck her head out to breathe, have Annie run into Joan at a support group, have Annie call Joan when paint spilled on her phone number, believe Joan when she said she could talk to spirits, have Annie freak out about a book of drawings, have her convince the book absolutely needed to be burned, and trick her into trying again, only to burn Steve instead, make Peter investigate downstairs and run run to the attic, eventually throwing himself out the window, and finally make him weak enough that Payman could finally possess his body. I don't even think I've gotten all the stuff even with that long-ass rant. You might say, well, the cult would have found another way if this wasn't the one, and I say, good! Maybe it won't take so long next time.
So you're just going to hand-wave away a refutation of your bullshit sin? Yeah, that seems on brand.
I want you inside of me.
I want to be the one inside of you.